Okay, so it's the big day, right? And the big day that we're all scared of, the client you're going to meet at the comfortable coffee shop or cozy cafe, right? And you're nervous. And some of you may be like, what are you going on about? I'm not nervous at all. That's awesome. I'm just saying that because I was. So if you're nervous about this, don't worry, you're in good company and we're going to make it really easy. So let's go through the scripts for what happens at that meeting, right? You've already invited them. And I'm going to go through 2 client scripts, a little bit different language in each, and then one for centers of influence, somebody like an accountant or an attorney or maybe a family member that's particularly influential, but they're not clients, right? Centers of influence that are not clients. Okay, so number 1, current clients. Like client shows up, you do whatever, small talk you want. I know in some parts of the world, small talk's really important. In other parts of the world, it doesn't really matter. Whatever, you get to it and you say, hey, I'm going to pretend the client's name is Rick. Rick, thanks so much for taking the time today. I've really enjoyed working with you and the family. In fact, I'd love more clients who are just like you. If you were me, how would you go about that? So simple. Just let that hang in the air. It's okay. It might feel a little uncomfortable. As long as you have your mindset right, it won't be awkward or it won't be a burden. It won't be perceived as a burden. It might be a little uncomfortable, but it won't be perceived as a burden if you have your mindset straight. You're just curious. You're an investigative journalist at this point, an academic looking into this problem, right? So if you were me, how would you go about that? So that's 1. Number 2, slightly different. Rick, thanks for taking the time to meet today. I would love to ask you for your advice. I really enjoyed working with you as a client. I'd love to work with more clients just like you. If you were me, how would you find more people just like you? Just let it sit there. Now, I have to admit, I like the first one better. If you were me, how would you go about that? It leaves it much more broad. I like it. Now, let me just mention here that if you have a niche, this is where the rocket fuel happens. If you don't have a niche, don't let that be an excuse not to have these conversations. But if you do have a niche, it's like rocket fuel, which is why I'm so endlessly banging the drum on having a niche, right? Makes everything better. So here's where you could do insert the niche, right? Rick, I've really enjoyed working with you and the family. In fact, I'd love more entrepreneurs who've had a successful exit like you as clients. If you were me, how would you go about that? So you just insert name of niche there, right? Beautiful. So those are the two scripts for clients. Now let's talk about a third one for centers of influence. This may be an accountant, an attorney, a consultant. It may be a family member who's just very influential and is not a client. Whatever the case may be, these aren't clients. That's the important part, right? You've sent them an invite. The invite is almost exactly the same. And again, they only made it on your invite list because they would say yes, right? So these are friends. This isn't like, you can't use this as a cold call invite, right? These are people who think highly of you. So the invite was almost exactly the same. Hey, Sally. Sally's an attorney. You and Sally have done a little bit of work together. Sally thinks highly of your work. You think highly of Sally's. The invite was something like, Sally, we're considering making some changes in the way we do business development or marketing and communication. And I'd love to get your advice. Would you mind if we met at the cafe for 15 minutes sometime right after work or in one afternoon, whatever you want to say there. Invite's almost exactly the same. Here, though, when we ask the question, we can change it a little bit, right? We can say something this simple. We're making some changes about how we do business development at Prasada Capital, name of firm, right? And I would like to work with more clients, and then you've got to insert some description here. And the easiest one is niche. Right now, Sally is an accountant, and Sally works with a bunch of entrepreneurs who've had a successful exit, to hammer on that one, right? So you can say here, Sally, we're making some changes about how we do business development at Prasada Capital to really focus, because we'd like to work with more entrepreneurs who've had a successful exit. And I know you have unique insight into that group. If you were me, how would you go about that? Right? That's the one we use with centers of influence. It just involves a little. Now, if you don't have a specific niche, you just need to have some idea, some truthful idea that Sally has insight into a group that you would like to work with. It could be something like this. Sally, we're making some changes about how we engage in marketing and communication at Prasada Capital. And we want to focus more on clients like John. John's somebody that Sally referred to me, right? I know, you and I've enjoyed working with John, and we want to have more clients just like John. If you were me, how would you go about that? So that's the situation in which the Center of Influence has referred somebody that you've enjoyed working with, and you can bring that up with Sally. That's it. It's not hard. You can do it. Go do it 10 times. That's the conversation. That conversation we need to have 10 times. 10 times. I'm just going to keep hammering on this. If business development's important to you right now, if getting new clients is where your focus is, I know of no faster way than this, right? There's a whole bunch of work to do on niche marketing and content marketing and all of that stuff. And and we might want to be engaged in that. I don't know if you should or not. We might want to be engaged in that. But while we're doing it, if growing a business is critical to you right now, 10 of these conversations will change the business. That's for sure. So that is the scripts for the actual referral conversation. Greetings, Carl Richards here. The video you just watched was just a few minutes of the more than 15 hours of instruction that I've included in the School of Advice. Now, I know that there are courses and workshops and classes that you can get on how to be a better financial advisor, right? How to use a spreadsheet and a calculator. That is not what the School of Advice is about. What there isn't almost any of, I couldn't find anywhere, frankly, is how to communicate at each stage of a client relationship. How do we communicate clearly in our marketing efforts to demonstrate our value, right? How do we have an amazing first and second meeting? How do we convert existing clients to a new and better way? And then how do we keep clients happy for life? That's what we cover in the School of Advice. Now, if you're interested in seeing more of what's on the inside of the School of Advice, including the practical guides, loads and loads of specific tactical advice, and even word-for-word scripting, just tell me where to send your invitation below.